Okay, we're recording. Um, so, um, so everyone, this is Willie. I don't know if you want me to share your last name on this. Maybe not for now. But Willie is a wonderful college friend, and I just really wanted to kind of hear his story. Have Willie share his story on here, just of his life and the things that he's learned. And he's an amazingly creative guy and has a wonderfully open and loving heart. And so I hope that maybe something here can be learned. So
Cool.
yeah, so Willie, uh, where would you like to begin with, like
Yeah.
with your life, like so starting from the beginning?
Yeah. Thank you. So basically, I was born in San Diego, and my my beginnings were, I was born privileged. Like in a certain sense, like privileged with experiences. I think so. I was born in San Diego, and then I grew up in Los Angeles because we moved to LA. And we didn't live in a mansion. We didn't live in, a like an estate or anything, but we did live in like a nice suburb of LA. Um, and basically, I loved my childhood. I had a great childhood, you know? Um,
What made it great?
yeah. I just felt loved, like I
Mm.
felt, you know, like my parents really cared about me. You know, I, I was able to pursue my passions, like I love playing piano, I love to sing, I love writing and reading. Like one of many examples would be when my when we were going on vacation, we just go to a bookstore and they say, hey, buy a book, get a book. And thinking about it now, I thought every kid that was like for every kid, right? Like just go nuts. Like you get one book for this vacation, and then maybe we'll buy you a video game too. Like it's like, oh my gosh, awesome. Like, and I thought that that was what everyone's experience was. And so I loved my childhood. This is rose colored glasses though, because of course, like any child, um, I had like hardships, like through like growing up. And uh yeah, I had a great, yeah.
So could you talk a little bit about like the beginning of school and everything, like elementary school, and what was that experience like? Did you go to a Catholic school when you were younger too?
No, so we Uh, in Los Angeles, I went to just a public school for fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, but it was a really like nice public school. And in school, I have ADHD, and so I was diagnosed when I was in first grade in when I was living in San Diego, um, and school was always kind of like a challenge because that's sort of the one of the hallmarks of someone with attention deficit. So, but I didn't go to a religious school. Um, actually, never. We grew up Catholic, and I actually never went to a religious school. But I consider myself Catholic. Um, but yeah, school was the public school wasn't the greatest place for me, but that was okay. It was 3 years. I made friends. I was a friendly guy. I didn't raise my hand when I was supposed to, kind of thing. Like it, made, drew a mustache on the teacher's face on in the yearbook of someone else's, you know,
Her real face?
or no, yeah, 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 exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And got in trouble for that and had to buy her a new yearbook. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
So like in elementary school, the things, what were some of the hardships that you think that you had during that time? I guess, well, get it, maybe like feeling, was it like guilt for doing that in your teacher's yearbook? Like, was that one of the main kind of stories from your elementary school in
Well,
terms of?
yeah, great. So my older sister, just some background, my older sister went to the same school. She was just a couple years older. But in terms of that school, like my elementary school, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, I would say the hardships were growing up with having to take, starting to take medication more religiously, like more like in first grade, I had to start taking meds, but it's never over. Like even a couple days ago, I had a medicine scare. I've taken meds my whole life, but it's never it's never easy. And so trying to figure out the best, way to help my ADHD in the classroom. I was gifted kind of thing, like I had an IEP where I don't know what was on it, but it was something like he gets to do extra work when he wants or whatever. But honestly, Kenny, like my life as in elementary school was fine. It was great. Like,
Huh, that's so like this whole thing with ADHD, right? Like when
yeah.
that first kind of came up when you were in first grade and the medication and everything, like how do you feel like that label do you feel like that label of having ADHD has affected you and your life a
Oh.
lot? Like the label, but also, and to what extent do you feel like you really are like the quintessential person with ADHD, or are you?
Oh, interesting. I'm going to approach that from a different perspective, and then I will answer that. I feel like my journey with ADHD and executive functioning, and because I also have anxiety and depression, but my journey with all that mental health stuff is very much one where like it's not about the label. Like meaning, of course, we both know that it's not about the label, but I've never felt like someone said, "Oh, he's ADHD, like he's that way. Therefore, I'm going to make assumptions about him." I never felt that, mainly because it's hard enough just to have it. Like, I don't, like, I was concerned with dealing with it, not with the labels people were putting on me. Now, people would call me retarded, but not because I had ADHD. It's because of the actions I was taking that made it look like I was that way. You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
yeah, yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's
that
not,
you
yeah,
were like impulse, like that your kind of impulsivity was the reason that people were calling you retarded, not so much.
not because, oh, he has ADHD. Oh, he has ADHD. Like,
Yeah.
and I think part of that, my parents did a great job. They basically taught me like, hey, these meds and stuff. This is what you need to take. Just it's like wearing glasses, like for people who can't see. Like, and it's just what makes you like everyone's unique and everyone has their thing. But honestly, Kenny, like my ADHD journey continued to this day. Like I've gotten a lot better about how I view myself and what it means to have ADHD than I did in high school, for example. But
So yeah, so that's actually a great transition. So in high school, how did you view yourself?
yeah, thinking of terms of the ADHD, right?
In ADHD, but also, more broadly too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I went to a small private school. It wasn't religious though. A small private school where only like two or three from the public school my class went there, and it was because it was like the environment I really liked. It was small. I could get the personal attention that I needed. Um, you know, like a teenage boy has growing pain, like puberty, like anyone. So that was just fine. But in terms of my self perception, hmm, I would say, yeah, I viewed myself. I had a healthy dose of confidence, like and I got extra time on tests. Like I was able to go to the dean of students and be like, hey, I need some more time on this test. Like I got accommodations, which I needed because the focus and the anxiety and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, high school was great. Like, I say that now, but it was a bubble. It was a bubble, because I thought that everyone liked to read. Like I thought that every student at least had some sort of liking of the material, and some were just better than others, right? But it turns out, and we'll get to this later, but like that's not true. Like,
Yeah, that was like a because everything in your life up to that point had led you to that assumption, I guess, right? Because
yeah,
you were
yeah.
just
I
always
mean,
in great communities.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
So, like through like in high school and everything, and like what was your relationship like with anxiety and depression and that stuff? Did those things kind of really intensely affect you in that during that time, or did it affect you more later on in life?
Oh, they started to affect me senior year of college or of high school. Of high school,
Mm.
yeah. So um, like yeah, I'd just be walking around and I just feel like, oh, this is horrible. Like something is like I feel horrible. Like like I'm not gonna do anything bad, but like I feel really bad. And it was like, oh, like this is something. So
Why do you think that was?
well, I think I just remember a moment walking towards there's this patio called the senior patio where students only seniors are allowed. It's like one of the senior benefits or whatever. I was walking towards there and I was like, God, like I just feel hollow, like and empty, like life sucks. Like and I think part of the reason I felt that way, well, the reason was because I had clinical depression. Like, you know, and sure, I mean, there's psychosomatic reasons for everything, and life flows through people and gives reasons for things. But I think, you know, I think junior year, senior year, yeah, that's when it started. But then I took medicine for it, and it eventually got a lot better.
So the medicine, so like what are your thoughts of medication? Like what are it seems like it's been such a major part of your life for so long. Like what are the benefits and what are the detriments, do you think, of medication?
Yeah, benefits for people who need it. It's part of a three-pronged plan for. So there's medication, there's behavioral therapy, and then or there's medication, there's like seeing someone, and then there's like stuff you can do alone like exercise or find a partner, a suitable partner for you, you know. And I feel like medication is a huge part of my success. Like I'm pro medication for those who for who it's right for,
Mm,
like
mm.
110%. Like um yeah, it's become a really important part of my life, and eventually I might I have decreased the anxiety and depression meds slowly over the years. So eventually I'll get down to what you know lower. But for the ADHD, I if it works, it's like wearing glasses. It's, if someone who's nearsighted needs to wear glasses, it's fine.
Ah,
I
well,
see no problem.
um, so
I
then,
see. I'm gonna cut you off. I
yeah.
see how it could be a problem if it doesn't work for people. It doesn't work. Like it sometimes people say that the highs are not as high and the lows aren't as low, and they're very even out, and they don't like that. You know, like with certain medications, you know, there's a song in Next to Normal called I Miss the Mountains, right? Where she's singing about how she misses the peaks of her emotional, but I don't get that. I don't feel that. So
That is a choice too. That's a choice that have you ever had some like scary times when you've been off your medication?
yes, very much so. Yeah, like my singing group in college, I was in a group and we were going to New York City for this. It was horrible. This being off the medication during this time because it's like you know getting prepared for a big trip for someone with ADHD is hard enough, but also making sure you have all your meds in order, and it's really tough. I was off it for almost a week. I think it was like 5 days, 5 6 days, and it's really hard to describe. And even my fiance will ask me like, how did it feel? And it's like it felt horrible. Like the only so much sensory input in New York City, just walking around, I felt like the only thing I could do was either sleep or eat. Those two things would make me feel okay. Like just sitting there and with closing my eyes and doing nothing, or like sensory. input. It was horrible.
Wow.
Yeah.
What like the so is there a kind of like lesson or advice that you'd like to give for people who may be going through similar things with I don't know, like going off medication, or with people who are dealing with anxiety, depression, and
Yeah.
ADHD? Like, what do you have any thoughts for them?
Yeah. Like, you have to give it time, right? Like, you're going to have a doctor tell you one thing, or a friend tell you one thing, or a Google search tell you something, and you try it and it doesn't work, right? Like, you try exercising every day and it doesn't nothing's changing. But I'd say don't be afraid of time, right? Because it's things might not get better right away, but they will be different. Like, you won't always feel the way you feel right now. You won't. Um, so that's my one piece of advice. The other piece of it is, like, don't take your community for granted. Like, find people who are who you can turn to, like real people. So those are my two, I'd have to say, and I think you agree with that, Kenny, right?
Oh
Like,
yeah, of course. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Community and fellowship and
yes,
brotherhood to me is really
yeah,
important. And
yeah.
um, so then moving into college now, like how did college change things? This is when
Oh,
we
it
met.
changes. It changed things a lot. It changed things a lot.
So how?
So
Tell me.
yeah, yeah. So end of high school, right? I had some medication for anxiety, depression, and ADHD. Going into college, so let's say I had maybe three meds leaving high school, right? So, like, depression, anxiety, ADHD. Going into college, my first year, I got a 1.9 GPA
Oh,
my freshman semester, my first semester,
dude,
and
that was
I
a
was
crazy time. I remember that, man. You were
yeah,
running everywhere.
it was
Could you tell
crazy.
people what you were doing, like all the activities you were doing?
Yeah, I was like doing chamber singers. I was in Coco singers. I was like doing an accompanying some musical stuff. I was writing stuff. It was just it was too much. I was
You were
away
like
from
in
home.
six classes, right? Six
Oh yeah,
classes or something?
not even to mention the class. I was in contemporary Chinese art history, and I basically BS'd my way past the prerequisite for that, because I got a 5 on the AP art history exam in high school. But again, it's the bubble, right? Of course I got a 5, because I was like, it's like you're in this bubble. Um, I took 5 classes or 6 classes or something like that, and took Renaissance poetry, failed eventually. Um, and something, I remember being in my dorm room and feeling like I can't work on this task. Like, I have this Renaissance research paper to do, and this task is really, I can't do it. Like, I'm paralyzed. Like, it was literally paralysis. Like, I don't know what to do. And there's times when I was walking to on middle path, and I thought to myself, I don't know if I'm hungry, tired, need to go to the bathroom, or what. I don't know what's going on. So basically, I didn't go on the spring tour with the Coco Singers. Um, um, I went home for spring break, and we basically were like, we need to go see the doctor again. Like, something, we need to figure out something. Um, so yeah, we went to a new doctor. He so remember, I was on ADHD, anxiety, depression. Um, he basically was like, dude, like, it sounds like you had like some sort of mental break. Not a breakdown, but like something is going on. So we tried a bunch of different things. We tried a bunch of different things for that the fourth piece for my medication. Um, and eventually, after 2 or 3 years, we found something that really worked. Um, and my grades got better every single semester. I ended college with a 3.0, which is, I think, good. And I got honors on one of the philosophy comprehensive exams, but not both. So it doesn't count as both. But, I got better every single semester. Um, and I think, the lesson from that, I think there was a moment, I lost my scholarship, right, to Kenyon, and there was a moment where I was like, I can't go back. Like I might not be able to go back. Um, and I think the lesson here is, it's not as simple as don't give up, right? It's not as simple as that, because it's so easy to tell someone, because I'm on the other side of it, right? It's so easy to say, don't give up, you can do it. But there's something where you have to kind of put aside your thoughts for a second and just go do something. Like, just go do it. Like, and in this instance, I had to start saying no. I had to start taking fewer classes, saying no to activities, and just saying no. Like, I can't, because if my thoughts crept in, Kenny, they would say, Willie, you're really passionate about this, you should do it. But I said, no, I can't. I just need to focus on.
Prioritize. Yeah.
Exactly. But the more I thought about it, our thoughts are our worst enemies sometimes. You just need to do stuff. You just need to do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You just need to start that paper, that essay. Now, without that fourth medication, I wouldn't have been able to do it. I honestly think, and all the help I received from the, disabilities office and all that stuff, I would meet with people, Dean of Student Affairs, I'd meet with her. She was great. And I wouldn't have gotten that at a bigger school, I think. So, but my, so after college, I was on a high, right? Because I was able to do this, made some great friends along the way. It was awesome. And so the ADHD was kind of figured out. The anxiety, depression were definitely figured out, right? For sure. And that fourth piece was figured out. But when I started teaching, and just cut me off if you have any questions.
No, no. Well, no. Well, so now we're getting into Earlham, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So yes, exactly. So I went, lived with my dad for a year after college and was an assistant teacher. A lot of stuff happened there, but it's not part of this journey really. So decided to go to Earlham for grad school to become a teacher. And basically stuff started popping up so remember, the anxiety, depression were under control. This fourth thing that was happening to me was under control. But the ADHD started kind of creeping back in terms of the negative effects of it. Now, I think there are tons of positive effects of having ADHD. Let's just be completely I wouldn't change it for the world.
It like gives you a lot of creative juices, right? Like that's where a lot of creativity comes in.
Yeah, and it allows me to hyper focus, right? So like I can.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's like your superpower. Yeah.
Exactly. But it took me a long time for me to fully treat it and know that it's my superpower. So Earlham, ADHD started creeping back in terms of its negative effects, and it really manifested in executive functioning. So there's a bunch of different aspects to ADHD, but one of the main ones is being able to visualize the past and the future and set goals and use your executive functioning, right? So like I even have, this is kind of jumping the horse, but I even have this on my whiteboard, visualize and talk, right? So like, and I'll go back to that later, but like at Earlham, I had a lot of trouble. This is interesting because there was ADHD was coming back in, and here's where things got confusing. Because what I was doing, I didn't really enjoy, but I didn't know whether it was because of the ADHD or because of the thing I didn't like to do. Like, and it was the teaching part of it, the whole point I was there. Like I was struggling with teaching for a variety of reasons. At first, I thought it was the ADHD and the habits that I've, but, and of course everyone's still in process, and I'm still thinking about I'm still really processing my teaching experiences. But part of it was how I grew up. Like, I didn't know that kids didn't like to read, or that kids felt disenfranchised by the education system, or that families didn't like receiving a call from their kid's English teacher. I didn't get that. but I got through it, right? So ADHD was kind of popping up again, but I got through it. I felt really good. Like I felt not great, but good. I felt like I can do this. It's hard, but I want to make a change for public schools. I want kids to learn a lot from me. Um, and so that was all fine and good. And eventually there will be a major revelation in this story, but that's the next stage. So I went to my first job out of grad school was a small private school, kind of like where I grew up. Perfect, right? But again, the ADHD really reared its head, and the executive functioning was really hard. I did too much. I had 5 preps. I had 5 different classes to teach.
Oh, that's a lot
Yeah,
right
and
off
they
the
gave me,
bat.
yeah, exactly. Great students, much different than the student. I mean, every student has greatness, but these students were super cool, and I really liked. They were respectful. They're authentic. But it was really hard because I had so much work to do. Hard for anyone. And eventually now we're getting up to more present day stuff, so I'm gonna be a little more cagey with.
Oh, hold on one second. The audio went out. Okay. Yeah,
Oh
sorry.
yeah, sorry. So yeah, can you hear
So
me
now,
again?
yeah, the last thing I heard is that now that we're getting to present day stuff, you'll be a little
It's gonna
more.
be a little bit more cagey. I'm gonna be a little bit more dancing around stuff, but
Okay.
because those people are still in my life, kind of. But I would say that I had too much to do. Too much was put on my plate. Um, and that's when I really started to dig in. I'm like, look, Earlham didn't really work. I mean, I graduated, right? But it didn't, I felt good, not great. This private school where I taught, it didn't really work either. Like something is not working. So I really dug deep. And I had an ADHD coach at Earlham for a little to get me through till the end, right? But I'm like Willie, you got to do some of your own research here. So I actually I read all the books, and I have um I have read cover to cover. Taking Charge of Adult ADHD. This is a great one. Russell
Wow.
Barkley. Understand Your Brain, Get More Done. Executive Functioning Workbook. Because meds is one piece of it, right? There's meds. There's seeing a doctor, and then there's stuff you can do on your own. And I really started to think. I started to embrace the sorrow of having to do this. Like I was like, Will, this sucks. Like, why do I have to do that? Why? It's like why me? Why me? Right? Because I never fully embraced that until that moment. Until like I didn't do a great job at this private school, and I was like, why me? Like, it's kind of like the why did good people suffer kind of thing. It's the same thing. But it all cycled back to these are just my glasses. Like everyone has their struggles, and this is my superpower because I know what it's like to be sitting in front of an empty page and don't know how to begin the essay. Like there's a line in a movie where a guy, an Ingmar Bergman movie, where he says, you know what? I think I've suffered as much as Jesus suffered. And I'm not saying I am saying that. I think everyone in their own way has suffered. And I think I had to enter that suffering. Like I had to be like, look, this sucks that I have to read these books and go to an ADHD coach. It sucks. But you know what? Life on the other side of this is so great. Like this is just what I have to do. And once my next job, I moved up to Kansas City. My next job didn't really work out either. But now I knew it wasn't because I didn't do my strategies, right? All these strategies I've gained. It was because I didn't like to teach. And so I was able to kind of like be like, okay, look, there's no shame in saying I'm not cut out. I don't want to teach at a big public high school. And that's a whole another story. But the fact that it's another story entirely is a joyful thing, because I realized I want to do what's best for me, and that is fully embracing who I am, which is someone who hyper focused, who hyper, And so now my job right now is just I write websites for people, and I write all day. I stay at home and I write all day. It's like different than teaching 5 different preps and handing out all this stuff. And it's a journey. I mean, I remember screaming at my mom and being like, "Mom, like, this sucks. This sucks." And she's like, "I know, but you have to do it." I'm like, "Yeah, but it sucks." Like, because Kenny, even doctors who work with people with ADHD, and this is a study has been done on doctors who work with ADHD patients, even they don't know what it's like to have ADHD. There's this stigma that it's laziness, right? Or that it's unmotivation or low intelligence. And even doctors hold that stigma. But you have to keep reminding yourself, this is what it's like for me. But you can't, and the final thing I'll say on this is that you can't be mean to yourself about it. Right? You can't
Right?
say to yourself,
It
you
can't
suck.
affect your self-worth. Absolutely
Yeah.
not. Yeah.
Because we are
You
human.
exactly.
We are
You
human beings.
existed before your ADHD. That who
Yes.
you know.
We are human beings, not human doings. So when you don't are able to do a task,
That's beautiful. Human
yeah,
beings versus human doings. That's great, Willie.
yeah, who cares? Yeah. And then I learned, pat yourself in the back for even the smallest of victories. Like, oh, I was able to put my glasses on, or I was able to put on hand lotion or something. Oh, good, you did it. Yeah, you didn't write a masterpiece. You didn't write a novel. Okay, we're human beings. It's fine. Like,
Yeah.
so like that,
Yeah.
all these insights I was able to get to. If I didn't have ADHD, I wouldn't have been able to like go into those different parts like of me, kind of.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and
It was
so
it was like it was in one way a boundary, an obstacle, but in another way, it was it was your way towards awareness of who you are.
yeah, and
And
awareness of what other people are like too. Like, because
mhm.
yeah, like it's like a touchstone for myself in order to connect with other what's in other people. Like, dear Evan Hansen, the main character, the main Ben Platt said, what's weird is what makes us wonderful. Like, or use your weirdness as a superpower. Like, that's you know, and finding meeting Alicia was just unbelievable, because she was kind of new to ADHD. She didn't really like even like doctors didn't understand it. But then that's part of that third part, right? Medicine, finding a doctor, and then stuff you do on your own, like meeting the right person, who understands you, and and so that's a whole other thing. But like I love having ADHD, and it took me a long time, and I still need to remind myself that, it just took me a long time. Yeah.
I have well, first of all, Willie, thank you. Like just the flow of thought. It's so, it's great. I miss you, and I miss like, I was just talking to someone the other day about this, but I said, I have a friend, a college friend who when we were in freshman year, I'd ask him to just come and like type on the computer because it would lull me to sleep.
Oh,
And yeah, so I always think of that. I always think of you coming and sitting down and typing and me just like
I miss that.
very, yeah, just falling asleep to it.
Yeah.
I have a few questions just about your whole. I didn't want to interrupt you. Like
No, please.
the like the idea of liking teaching versus actually liking it, right? The idea of it versus the actual doing of it is a thing I think that all human beings go through towards understanding what they actually like doing. For you, like was it a difficult was it a difficult realization that you didn't really want to teach anymore? Was that a
Yes,
difficult thing? And why? Like what about it was difficult for you?
because what how I grew up, I was in an English classroom. My hand was raised almost every moment, and I felt loved. Like I was good at it, right? And so I felt like I wanted that experience. Like, okay, so you go down this dinner metaphor. You go to eat some dinner, and you're in a great environment. It's a great environment. You're just having a great time talking with your friends, chatting. You have your girlfriend by your side, and you think to yourself, "Hey, I want to be a chef because this is great." Look, the sun sets over there, and then you become a chef, and then you're working at like McDonald's, like, and it's like, wait a minute, like it's different. Like there's something different, or even you're working at a different environment, not just McDonald's, but like you're working at a there's something different, like, and the idea of something, like you say, you liking something, right? So I never thought this would happen to me, but everyone says, oh, I'm pushed in a certain way, I'm pushed in a direction to do something, but I revolted, right? So like we've all heard stories where your parents want you to do something but you don't want to, and then you revolt, and then you are happier on the other side, right? Because you didn't become a businessman or something, right? That didn't happen to me, but it happened to me from within. Something in me wanted me to become a teacher. Like, I want to make kids happy, right? I want to make kids happy. But, but Kenny, in public school today, in a lot of schools today, rightly so, it's not about making kids happy and making them feel loved. It's about teaching them basic skills, whether they like it or not. Um, and I think there was a point where I never fully realized that until there were tears in my eyes of joy after my first day of my new job that I currently hold. Because it was like, oh my God, like this is what real work is. Like, this is work that suits me. Like, and so it was really hard. And I'm still trying to figure out if I want to be a teacher one day again. Like, if I want to educate in a certain environment, but it was just really, and I had great resources at my school. They even said, hey, you can visit other schools and see what they're doing because we really want it to work for you. But I was like, no, something about the clientele and the students, and I like the students, but I didn't love the students, and it was really hard when you don't love that. And I don't know, have there been things in your life where it was like you like something, the idea of something?
I think acting a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. I don't know. That's something that I'm going through right now. It's really difficult for me because with acting, you're acting like 10% of the time, 15% of the time. Everything else is, surviving, being financially secure, getting the survival job, liking the survival job, going
yeah,
and liking auditioning, liking getting like being able to let the rejection slide off your back.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
after you get a job, memorizing the lines. I hate memorizing lines. So like
right,
that's my least favorite part of the job. And
right,
that's
right.
it's
That's like
needed.
lesson planning. It's like it's
Yeah.
a big part of the job for
It's a
teaching. Like,
it's absolutely important if you're going to be, a good actor, if you're going to be a good teacher, you're going to lesson prep. You're going to memorize your lines word perfectly. Um, so
yeah,
there are a lot of the parts to the job um, that I'm learning um, aren't what I like to do.
yeah,
Now, one of the things with this YouTube channel that I'm finding is that almost every single part of it I love. I can get out of bed, walk 3 steps, and start talking to a person, and
yeah.
like
Uh huh.
I can listen to them. I love listening. I love debating ideas. I love bouncing ideas off of other people. I like posting and sharing ideas. I like, and so I like going and seeing that I had 5 more views today than I did yesterday, and that is a concrete improvement.
Yeah, we were talking about this on the Zoom call, I think. Yeah,
Mhm.
it's just like something you can literally see right there.
And like with acting, like you go and you audition, and someone is either sitting there smiling and or they're sitting
Yeah,
there like after you auditioned, you gave like you put your heart in it. They're just like, thank you, you
yeah,
know,
yeah.
and you like,
You never know.
did you affect their heart? Did me pouring my vulnerability into my work change them? No, it doesn't seem so. Um,
Right.
that yeah, I mean, there's a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, so the answer is yes. Yeah, I am in the middle of that same
Well,
process.
here's something. There's a composer named Charles Ives who was a businessman by day. He invented life insurance. Is an American composer, and then he went home and composed on the weekends. And he wrote like essays about like he's like, guys, like if you try to make a living about with what you love, you're gonna be screwed. Like it's not giving up. It's you. We need to have a sharp distinction, like because you have to do something you like, and if you do what you love, it just becomes and so and that's similar to your thing, but for me that's music, right? Because we haven't even
Mm.
touched on that, like,
Yeah, we have
and
not
not
talked about that at all.
not to say that we will in this conversation, but like I love music. Music is what makes me fly internally, and I love it and listening to it and performing it. And but I needed to get I don't I in another world, I guess I would be in LA listening to Taylor Swift music and trying to follow where the money goes, because that's what they say. If you're in LA doing music, you follow the money streams. And when I say that to you, it's just like no way.
Yeah, it's not.
Like
Yeah.
look through the magazine. Oh, they say look through the magazines, and like and highlight the names of the new up and coming development representatives who are representing the artists and sign the hottest new thing. It's like no, that's selling my soul.
Mm.
You know, I saw a therapist many years ago who his passion is music and he plays religious music. Like he has a little website and little CDs that not very many people buy. Who cares? He's doing what he loves to do. He's making some impact. Like you're making an impact with these YouTube videos, and I bet it feels kind of scary that you're making more of an impact with these videos than maybe you've made many
Yeah.
years of acting. And that's the same thing with me and these websites. It's like, wow, these lawyers like the websites I'm writing. Like, wow,
Yeah.
that's scary.
Yeah.
Scary.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like it was that easy. It was that easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
Uh,
it's crazy.
I'm interested about this thing with school being actually being to some extent and in some ways teaching kids just like basic skills. Um, do you think that like why do you think that's the case today? And do you think that a part of it is the standardized testing culture?
Well, I will say two things about that. Yeah, like for me personally, just a personal thing. When I went to school, a great history class would be a class in which the teacher kind of talked and you had a conversation and the teacher would lecture, but maybe you'd have a couple group projects and you would go to some cool temple, so like some ruins of a temple somewhere, and you visit some cool things, do some field trips, and the teacher was awesome, like so many cool facts. The teacher knew all sorts of things, right? Sounds pretty typical, like group projects, lecture stuff. Now in schools, Now, again, good for good or worse, better or worse, the teacher is required to write all the standards on the board ahead of time. The teacher is required to reach a diversity of learners in this, which is great, which is fine, but they have to like submit all these things ahead of time. They can't just be authentic in the moment, because the kids will revolt. They will take advantage of you. And so teachers need to plan classroom management. They need to know how to touch the back of a desk in just the way so that the student, it's like, it feels manipulative. And part of the reason that is because there's such a sharp divide between the haves and the have-nots in our society, I think, that kids feel like they hate school, feel like, why go to school if I'm just going to go to prison? If a cop's going to come up to me and mistake me for someone else and kill me, why should I go? Why should I learn about Shakespeare? And it's deeply ingrained in a lot of people, white, black, because there's such a distinction. Now, private schools have it great. And, and because they're small, funding is being siphoned to charter schools now. It's now standardized testing, to your point. Yeah, this is the first generation graduates of 2020 who have never not taken a standardized test every year of their life. And school accountability through, No Child Left Behind was just horrible. People are still trying to recover from No Child Left Behind. Now, there's no silver bullet, right? There's no answer that can answer any of it. But honestly, here's an idea. What if we made our number one priority, kids enjoyed being at school? What if and they liked it, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that would
Even loved it. How do we get kids to love school?
Yeah. The fact that I even had to make my love into like was sad. I think schools are too big. You see all these kids, you see kids sitting on the ground during lunch on their iPads. It's like schools are way too big. These, 1,200 kid, the kids are ushered from subject to subject. Final thing I'll say, and then on this, is that there's an author named Nell Noddings, and she's all about care ethics. What if we stationed schools not on subjects like math and English, but on care? So the first period is caring for our earth. Second period, caring for ourselves. Third period, caring for other people who are different than us. And then all the subjects naturally appear in there.
Yeah.
Because what's more important than caring for ourselves, our earth, and other people? There's absolutely nothing.
Wow. Nell Nodding?
Nell Noddings.
Hold on. Yeah, you got it. Oh,
yeah, I have it right here.
That sounds amazing. That sounds like such an amazing strategy.
Yeah, care ethics. Where is it? Yeah, it's called care ethics. Yeah, I have it somewhere. But she's
is it like Nell?
Nell Noddings, like you're nodding.
I see.
Let's see. Where do I have it?
Cool.
Here? Yeah, but Nell Noddings. She says care ethics is the way to go above virtue ethics, because a lot of schools teach virtue ethics. Guys, be respectful of each other. Kenny, this is going to blow your mind. I had a friend a couple days ago talk to me about why there are so many racist people. And there's a lot of answers to that, but one of them is that people grew up in an era of virtue ethics where people would say, be respectful. Respect is a virtue. You've got to be respectful. But no, if someone said, hey, that N-word is bad, and someone said, oh, don't say that. Be respectful, right? You never address the underlying belief of why that person said the N-word. You just say, be respectful. And then person A, we'll call him Todd. Todd grows up thinking, never say that, because authorities will say that it's not respectful.
Because I said so. Exactly.
Because I said so, and I ought to be respectful.
Absolutely.
And you never get to the reason of why it's bad to say that, and then change the thought behind the action.
Willie, this is why you're on here. This is why you're freaking on here, dude. Literally. This is, yeah.
Right?
I love you.
Yeah.
I love you. I want to give you a hug.
Oh, man. And so we have a generation of people who grew up thinking that they've been stifled. And what Trump has done, and this is the last time we'll talk about Trump on this call, but what Trump has done is he's made people made it okay to say to say the fruit of the thought to say. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. It's very, and it's all like Alfie Kohn is another author I love.
I love him too. Yeah, I read some of his stuff in at Kenyon.
Oh really?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
like
you know
unconditional
all that stuff.
parenting, unconditional love,
Yeah,
and
the myth of the spoiled child. You know, bunch of stuff. So all that stuff combined, and but I will say, if you like teaching, like if you're listening to this and you're a teacher or you're a doctor or you work at a car repair shop, if you like what you're doing and you enjoy it, don't let theoretical stuff get in the way of that. Like, it might be true that public schools are kind of like on the down low today. It might be true. But if you like being a public school teacher and you come home and your soul is fed, then do it. Like, it just didn't work for me for a variety of reasons that I explained that sound really theoretical, but really it didn't work for me. End of story. Like, if I make it any more complicated, then it just gets more complicated. Like,
yeah.
I love you too, man.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I usually I ask people these written questions, but I think that where we are right now is just perfect. I mean, I think you hit it on the head. Are there any last words or I feel like the what you just said were just amazing last words. But is there any other kind of last thing you'd want to leave with?
Well, I don't know. Like, yeah, I had a friend in high school tell me one time during my kind of depression time. He was like, he's a religious person, and I said, hey man, we were at on a field trip, and I felt like no one was paying attention to me. I felt like everyone was having fun with their cliques, and I was just alone, right? But he was next to me, and I said, hey, um, does any of this matter? Like, not, we're all just gonna leave. We're all just gonna, like, one day cease to exist. Like, and he said, Willie, remember, remember that God exists and that you have inherent worth, and everything after that will come. And I thought that the logic behind that was so beautiful. Like, whether you believe in God or not, remember that you have inherent worth, and everything after that will come. Will come. And I feel like that's true, um, even if it's hard to see sometimes. So I feel like that's true.
Willie, thank you. I'm going to upload this video.
Cool.
It's going to be on the channel in probably 20 or 30 minutes, and it'll be on there for people to see. And thank you for sharing yourself and your amazing thoughts and your beautiful heart.
Thank you, Kenny. This is awesome.
All right. Till next
Bye.
time, man. See ya.
Bye.